On today's show, the Cavs have announced a summer league roster. We'll talk about that. Plus, JJ Jackson of Locked On Blue Devils going to join the show as we discuss number 49 overall, Tyrese Proctor. We'll talk about what he can bring to the Cavs, who he thinks Tyrese Proctor can be in the NBA, and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find this show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure you drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, as we get started here, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that is code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON, NBA for $20 off your first purchase. JJ Jackson going to join the show in a few minutes as we talk about what Tyrese Proctor can bring to the Cavs. Of course, Proctor was the first draft pick the Cavs had this year at number 49 overall out of Duke. A lot in that conversation. I think a very good conversation, but we did get news on Thursday of the Cavs Summer League roster. Of course, the Cavs will play 5 Summer League games in Vegas in a couple of weeks, really just over a week away at this point. And I think there are some exciting names on this roster. I wanted to go through it. And of course, the name that stands out other than Proctor, because as you would imagine, the rookie is going to be on there, but Craig Porter Jr. being on there was the name that I looked at and said, I wasn't positive we were going to see Craig Porter Jr. going into year 3 on the Summer League roster. And of course, Jaylon Tyson, last year's first-round draft pick, who did not get a ton of playing time on the Cavs this past season, also will be in Vegas taking part in the Summer League. And I do think that it's a good thing for both of them that they're going to be there, because I think that the Cavs, and maybe to different extents for both of them, but I do think that those guys will be counted on in a way this upcoming season that they were not counted on last year to contribute meaningful things to the roster. And I look at what Jaylon Tyson could possibly do as the number 20 overall pick a year ago. I look at Craig Porter Jr. can do in his 3rd season in the NBA. And I think that there should be a very clear goal for both of those guys when Summer League begins for them in Vegas. And I think that goal should be play in 2 games, and then that's enough. I think, and when I say that, I mean, play in 2 games and stand out so much that it looks like, you know what, those guys just don't belong on the floor. Those guys look as if they are NBA players, because the quality of basketball in Summer League is much, much, much different than what the quality of basketball is during the NBA regular season. It is massive how big this difference is. So that's why I do think for guys that are in their 2nd or 3rd Summer League, a good goal there is to look as if you don't belong. And I say that in the best way. I say, look as if you don't belong because you are head and shoulders better than what the rest of the roster looks like. I think that's a good goal for Craig Porter Jr. to have. I think that's a good goal for Jaylon Tyson to have. Of course, there are individual goals that we could look at. Like, I would like to see Jaylon Tyson play a little bit more off the ball. Maybe that's why Craig Porter Jr. is there. I would like to see Craig Porter Jr. maybe showcase a little bit more shooting than we've seen from him. Of course, would like to see where Jaylon Tyson's outside shot is at as well. I think those are 2 pretty big, important factors as to whether or not those guys are ultimately going to be what the Cavs need in terms of rotation help this upcoming season. But I do think that if those guys show up to Vegas, they play in the first 2 games, and then the Cavs shut them down because they've accomplished that goal of looking as if they don't belong, then I think it is a really good thing, not only for them individually, but for the team as a whole. Naquan Tomlin also is on the roster. Of course, he's on a 2-way deal with the Cavs. Luke Travers, not on the Summer League roster. As I record this, Thursday afternoon, shortly after the rosters are out. I'm not entirely sure as of right now why Luke is not playing Summer League. I certainly was, knowing that he was going to be back on the two-way with the Cavs, I expected him to be on the Summer League roster, so I'm a little surprised that he's not. But as of right now, I do not know. And then, of course, Saliu Nang, the number 58 overall selection it was for the Cavs, their second round pick. He will be on the Cavs Summer League roster, taking part in games in Vegas. And Tyrese Proctor. So those are the guys that I do find to be very exciting to see what they can do. What does it look like in Summer League? Because those are the ones, and I think it's going to be different, to a different extent for everybody. But those are the ones that could potentially have a future with the Cavs. Of course, there are other guys on this roster, some of whom have played in the G League, some of whom are guys that have signed Exhibit 10 deals with the Cavs. That means that they basically have agreed to be in training camp with Cleveland. And if and when they do not make the roster, they get a bonus for then playing for the Cleveland Charge. That's how that works. But I do think that the names to watch here, of course, are Tyson, Tomlin, Proctor, Craig Porter Jr. Those are the ones that next year, and of course, Tomlin is on a two-way contract, expecting a lot of him next year, although I do think he does have some upside considering just how raw he is as a basketball player. I think he does have some long-term upside, so maybe we see a little bit of that on display for the Cavs during Summer League this year. I'm not entirely sure what that's going to be, but I do think that is something that could make a lot of sense, that could be, we could see him do some good things, and the eyes could be opened a little bit more. But ultimately, the thing that I'm going to be most dialed into during Summer League, what does Jaylon Tyson look like? What does Craig Porter Jr. look like? And of course, what does Tyrese Proctor look like? Because those are the three guys that are on the Summer League roster that are on standard contracts with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Yeah, Tomlin's going to be on the team, but he's going to be on a two-way. Yang was just picked, but he's not going to be part of the team this year. Those three guys are all on standard NBA contracts. I expect that the Cavs will go into the season with 14 guys on standard contracts this year. 3 of them are playing in Summer League. What do those 3 guys look like? I am very interested to see. Of course, it'll be Proctor's first taste of professional basketball after playing 3 years at Duke. How does he adjust? What does he look like? What does he do well? I think that those are things that certainly could be exciting for Cavs fans, because there is a world in which he has some sort of role this year in Cleveland. Maybe not a big role, but I do think there's a world in which he has some sort of role with the Cavs, and getting to see what he can do for the first time wearing wine and gold, I do think is a very exciting thing. I think it is something that I will have my eyes on, and I think it's something that Cavs fans should have their eyes on as well. Now, JJ Jackson from Locked On Blue Devils is going to join me in a second. We recorded this conversation Sunday afternoon, so it's been a little less than a week since we've talked. I do not believe that anything in there is dated, but at the time of recording this, the Cavs had not signed Larry Nance Jr. and Ty Jerome. While it was the assumption he was not going to be in Cleveland, but he had not yet agreed to terms, I don't think, with Memphis. Or maybe he had, I'm not sure. But the Cavs look a little bit different right now than they did when I had this conversation with JJ. But really great stuff from JJ, and that is straight ahead right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the #1 ticket marketplace for you to go to. If you're looking to get in the door, whether it's a sporting event, like, a baseball game, whether it's a concert, comedy show, whatever it is, whatever you want to go to because you want to make memories, Game Time is the way to get in. Instead of having to log on early and wait forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose out on your spot for that show you've been dying to see. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to be under stress. And it doesn't just have to do with live music. Like I said, it's everything. Game Time can help get you in the door. They make getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. And prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. And you can save up to 60% off with some killer last-minute deals that Game Time has. Instead of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal, Game Time's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Plus, you'll know exactly what your view looks like. They've got a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises when you finally get into the door and find your seat. So take the guesswork out of buying concert, show tickets, sporting event tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Well, if you're a college basketball fan, you've probably heard this guy's podcast because JJ Jackson, the host of Locked On Blue Devils, does a great job for us here at the Locked On Podcast Network covering just that, the Duke Blue Devils. And they had a number of draft picks in last week's NBA draft. One of them went to the Cleveland Cavaliers at number 49 overall, Tyrese Proctor. So we are here to talk about him. And JJ, I just kind of want to begin the conversation for people maybe like myself who don't watch a ton of college basketball, who are trying to familiarize themselves with Proctor after he was picked by the Cavs. What can you tell us about what you liked, what you didn't like from him in the 3 years that he spent at Duke?
Yeah, Tyrese Proctor easily became one of my favorite players over his 3-year career at Duke. He's got such a unique bond and kind of identity within the program that was talked about a whole lot throughout the course of the year. I mean, Duke basketball, as everyone knows, has long been one of the titans in the sport. But something that's newer is that we're now in the John Shire era of the program and no longer in the Mike Krzyzewski, the Coach K era as of being the head coach after 42 seasons. And what John Shire talked about all throughout the course of the season, is that Tyrese Proctor was the only guy who had been with him every single step of the way and was one of the very first recruits that came to play for him. Going back to him coming over from Australia early on in his career, Tyrese Proctor, much like Cooper Flagg, made the decision to come a year earlier than expected to play college basketball and came onto the scene really strong for this Duke team. Had a really great freshman year, a really strong NCAA tournament game against Tennessee in his freshman season, so much so that he's, testing draft waters after year one. And it's, Adrian Wojnarowski, a Woj bomb, that breaks the news that he's actually going to go back to school and be a projected lottery pick going into the next season. So anytime Woj is breaking those college decisions at that time and he's got the lottery tag to it, it's like, wow, this is a big get for him to come back to Durham for another season. And in that sophomore year, Duke had the fit never really kind of pan out the way that they wanted it to in terms of, is this guy on the ball? Is he off the ball? We've got Jared McCain, who's playing really well as a freshman. Caleb Foster's been here for several years. They're trying to get the inside-out dynamic figured out. And you can never really figure out what the best way to play with Tyrese Proctor was. He returns for his junior season after a down sophomore year, and the NBA opportunities weren't as frivolous for him to pursue that. And this season, he was remarkable. Duke found out early on in the season they had a good thing going with both Caleb Foster and Sion James on the ball. Let Tyrese Proctor really focus on that three-point shot from the outside. And boy, did he hit him well. He hit him at a high clip throughout the course of the season. And a really great junior year for him to help lead Duke to the Final Four. It's not every year, Danny, as you know, that a college basketball team is able to say all 5 of our starters are drafted. And Tyrese Proctor is one of the big reasons why Duke's able to make that claim.
So one of the things that Cavs general manager Mike Yancey said on draft night after the Cavs picked Proctor, and you touched on it when you were talking about him coming over from Australia, but I find this to be a really interesting thing. And it is interesting, I think, to a lesser extent with Cooper Flagg, because he's just like this phenom that, if he would have gone a year early or a year late, like he just would have gone number 1 in whatever draft he was going to be in. And obviously Proctor is a different example there, but coming over from Australia, Gansey mentioned maybe a year earlier than he thought they should have, or than they thought he should have. You mentioned him having a really good freshman season. If he waits and comes over and only spends 2 years at Duke instead, and we're still having this conversation now, and maybe there's no way to know this for sure, but do you think that we are looking at him in different terms if he would have been at Duke a year later than he was?
I think that's totally fair to say, and I think that's a shift that we're going to start to see in the sport itself in an NIL era where the amateur word is not such a big thing that you shy away from in college sports. I mean, across the NCAA, we're seeing the numbers increase in terms of guys who played professional level basketball overseas that are now being a part of the American college game. And Danny, I know that you've got some of the draft scouting in your background and that sort of thing. It always feels like, well, when you've got more tape, there's more to be wrong with you or whatever. And it's way easier to go find Duke basketball than, say, Australia games, right?
Yeah,
or all these
easier.
other places across the world. And so to your point, yeah, if you've only got 2 years to look at for Tyrese Proctor, and we're ending it as strong as he did in this junior season, and we eliminate one of those college years, oh yeah, I mean, this is absolutely a guy that folks would be really more excited about at the next level.
Were you surprised that he fell as far as he did? And I know that I have explained to my audience like how this happened and how the second round of the NBA draft has started to work, and like he was kind of able to navigate his way down to 49. But did you expect him to be on the board at that point in the draft, or did you think he was somebody that might have gone late first round, early second round?
Yeah, the latter. I definitely was shocked that he was still on the board there at 49. I thought going into round 2, separating it into the 2 different nights, I truly thought that Charlotte there with their back-to-back at 33-34 was going to draft Tyrese Proctor. I felt like that was a good landing spot for him. And hey, come to find out, it wasn't Tyrese Proctor. It was the other guard in Duke's backcourt from this past season in Sion James that they draft to pair with their first-round selection, Con Knippel. So now 2 more rookies going to Buzz City there in Charlotte. So to see him go past 33-34 and then still keep going through those picks and not see Tyrese Proctor drafted, I'm thinking, what is going on here? This isn't making much sense to me. This guy absolutely can play. I'm not quite sure why he fell. And then the reporting starts to come out a little bit about how much it appears your Cavaliers enjoy Tyrese Proctor and want him to be a part of this team, that it's like, okay, I feel really great about him. Because what I've always hated to see over the years, Danny, with these Duke players and really college stars in general, is when they do bet on themselves and they do go to the draft and then they're not selected. Just the gut check that must be for them to have to look themselves in the mirror and say, well, I left college and now what?
Sometimes it can be tough. Sometimes you find guys that ultimately get to a certain point and don't want to be drafted because they find themselves in a good situation. I think this is sort of the best of those both worlds for Proctor, where he's going to be in a good situation. One that I do think if he comes in and impresses early, he could find playing time early in his career. And of course, he's going to be on a standard contract and not a two-way deal, which a lot of guys don't want to be on when you get to that later portion of the second round. But you did mention too, JJ, earlier about all 5 starters for Duke being drafted this year, one of which obviously Proctor. But how do you think playing alongside 4 other guys that, you know, a couple of them obviously in the lottery, and then the one that we just talked about going to Charlotte in the 30s, but how do you think that playing alongside 4 other pros so consistently, or future pros, I guess is more accurate way to say it, but 4 other guys that are drafted so consistently helps prepare him for the NBA?
Yeah, I just think that's what kind of Duke has built their program on over the last kind of decade plus. And really, let's just bring this thing full circle, right? You look at the timeline for Duke basketball. In 2010, they win the national championship with John Shire, now their head coach, as a senior. Incredible. A bunch of seniors led the way for Duke, that team. I bring that up to say the following year, a freshman comes in from the New Jersey area whose name is Kyrie Irving, and we find out he's the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And really that changed Coach K's recruiting philosophy in making it more of the one-and-done style of player, that he was able to recruit more successfully, bringing more talented players around his team so that they were ready to play and perform once they got to the next level. A lot of that goes back to Coach K's time with Team USA and just some of those pro habits that he was developed and put into the program. So John Shire being around for all of that, he's been able to model that himself. I mentioned Tyrese Proctor being there for 3 years with him. And I apologize for being a little long-winded here, but you think about the starting 5 that they've got. It's now 9 total players in 3 seasons that have been drafted for John Shire. And Tyrese Proctor's been there for all 3 seasons. And you think about those other picks We haven't seen the rookie class for this year, what they're going to look like. But to let people know in the Cavs world here, you're talking about Derek Lively, who Tyrese Proctor came in with as a freshman, who immediately made an impact in Dallas. Let's look at last year's draft, what Jared McCain was doing. Many would argue he was on his way to being the rookie of the year before he has the meniscus injury. Kyle Filipowski ended up falling to be the second pick of the second round. And throughout the course of the year, he was having good minutes and good run with Utah. I mean, over Tyrese Proctor's career, he's benefited from playing around NBA level guys at Duke. And that absolutely will help him translate to what he's going to do as the pro himself. It wasn't just this year, the point. He's been around NBA guys his entire career that he's been there for Duke.
See, when you brought up Kyrie Irving, I thought you were just going to say, two guards, both played at Duke, both born in Australia. Like, I just thought that that's where that comparison was going to go.
It can't keep going, yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build, and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. And at Epicor, the All-Stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain is easier. Managing logistics is easier. Responding to price changes is easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions, they'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most out of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier takes the lead. Discover your success at easierwithepicor.com. That is easierwithepicor.com. I think it is obviously a really good thing that he's played on some very talented basketball teams. And I do think that is something that maybe this is a bigger discussion for a different day, but I do think that's something the Cavs value in terms of wanting to find guys from good winning cultures and guys that have played with other talented guys, because you can draft somebody that is the best player at a smaller school or even a less successful, bigger school. And part of the thing that I do think should be appealing about Proctor to the Cavs is, one, the fact that he, throughout his 3 years in Duke, or in Durham, I guess would be more accurate to say, played in different roles. And two, the fact that he played off the ball and the fact that he was not somebody that had to be ball dominant all the time, because when you get to Cleveland, especially as the number 49 overall pick, he's not going to be somebody that plays on the ball when he's on the roster with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. Like, his touches are going to look different than they did when he was early in his career at Duke. But I do wonder, from your perspective, how can the role that he had in his third season with the Blue Devils sort of look similar to what it might be in the pros?
Yeah, I think plenty of the kind of catch and shoot looks and opportunities that he was getting on the offensive end of the floor. I mean, it's a Duke team that had, 2 top 5 picks this year in Cooper Flagg and Con Knipler, who they felt very comfortable initiating the offense, right? And then, by the way, you've got the number 10 pick and Kaman Malawach, who's setting these screens. He's the lob threat at the rim, which only opens up some backside action for Tyrese Proctor to get all these clean looks, and he's able to knock it down throughout the course of the year. So just his spacing dynamic, I thought, was incredibly impressive for Duke, particularly this season, given all the quality of looks that he was able to get from the other offensive stars that Duke was able to have.
All right, so I want to do something that is incredibly unfair to everybody, but I'm going to do it. So let's pretend you have a crystal ball, and there are 2 versions of Tyrese Proctor's career. One in which he's very successful. I don't want to put like any accolades on it, but a successful career, particularly from a 49 overall pick. And then another version where he doesn't pan out. He doesn't amount to anything in the NBA. In the version where he becomes successful, what is the one thing that you look at and say, okay, yeah, in Proctor's career, that's the thing that went really well for him? And then on the other side, the version where he's not so successful, what would be the thing that you could think could hold him back?
I love this. That's an incredible way to kind of frame it and look at what could be for him. For Tyrese Proctor to be successful, if I'm evaluating this full career for him, I think it absolutely would be a spot where he's able to come in and know his role and attack it and be the best in that role, if that makes sense. Like, not putting so much on his plate all at once, but just being the absolute most dynamic offensive player in the given responsibilities that he's got, most likely being sort of that catch and shoot guy. And then, he's got the 6'5" frame that we haven't really talked about a good bit. Tyrese is the ultimate competitor who every single year he was at Duke, every single game he played for Duke, took so much pride on the defensive end of the floor, and having the other team's best player, the defensive assignment, is what Proctor absolutely thrived and was looking forward to. He had this kind of edge to him watching him play. I think Cavs fans will notice that a little bit easy. The Aussies are strutting a little different on the basketball floor, and Proctor's kind of got that to his game as well. I would say, though, in the version where the career is not as successful, it's something like the shots not falling, and then what else is there? Because when you look at the freshman season that Tyrese Proctor had, it was a whole lot of the jump shots, a whole lot of these pull-up mid-range jumpers, some shots from the outside, and then going into the sophomore season, more of the same. The shot diet, Danny, had nothing around the rim. Like, you could not do anything to put this guy, have the ball on the floor, attack, be a little bit more of an offensive weapon, which is strange because when he would go and, elevate, he'd put together some highlight dunks that you're able to go find on YouTube throughout the course of his career. It's just something he didn't do. And so if teams are, closing out on him quickly, he's got to add a little bit more to his game. If that part doesn't develop, I think that's going to be a real miss for Tyrese Proctor to get figured out.
So I'm glad you brought up that portion of it, because I talked about this on Monday's episode about Ty Jerome, who the Cavs are. I don't know when this podcast is coming out. We are recording this Sunday night. Ty could have signed somewhere else at this point. But I made the point that he's he's a 6'5" guard that I think plays smaller than he is because of what his shot diet looks like. Proctor also listed at 6'5". Some places will have him like 6'4.5". I've seen him 6'5.5". Like it's just kind of all over the place, but in that same range of size.
Sure.
Do you view him as somebody who plays as big as he is for a guard?
Defensively, absolutely. Yeah. What I loved was that he felt comfortable being the on the ball, the attack defender, his wingspan, being able to, I just have so many visions and memories playing through in my head right now of kind of passing lane steals that Proctor was able to get. A couple of like really amazing hit ahead passes this year by playing the passing lane up to Cooper Flag. And all of a sudden you've got this monster dunk in transition. So on the defensive end of the floor, absolutely, you'll see Tyrese Proctor use that size to his advantage. I think it's just on the offensive end of the floor, man, where you do want to kind of remind him like, hey, man, you are this bigger bodied guard. Those arms are long. They can make plays when you attack and are assertive on the offensive end.
All right, last one. I will get you out of here with this. And this isn't my favorite thing to do, admittedly, and I'm sure it's nobody's favorite thing to do, but is there somebody either that you've watched in the NBA or somebody else even at Duke that you watched Tyrese Proctor play and you're like, you know what, he kind of reminds me of that guy?
Yeah, I really struggle in this department, Danny, in terms of the comparisons. But thinking about what he does for Duke, I've just got flashes of all the Duke players are going to be a little bit easier for me to do. I see like the Duke Grayson Allen that we saw a little bit, not nearly the athlete that Grayson Allen was, but if you think about what he was able to do and catch and shoot opportunities for Duke, he was absolutely remarkable in that regard. Size frame, Luke Kennard, the right-handed version of that, not as much of a, kind of those are the players that come to mind for me. So
okay, I like that. Hopefully, just Grayson Allen without all the tripping that seemed to follow him.
Let's leave that in the past.
Well, JJ, thank you so much for doing this, man. Very much appreciate your time. If you're looking for takes and everything else on the Duke Blue Devils, JJ is your man. Thank you so much, man.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you to JJ Jackson for taking some time and chatting with us here at Locked On Cavs about what Tyrese Proctor could be. Some really good information from him, of course, as somebody who has, watched a lot of Tyrese Proctor over the last couple of years. I certainly think he's a pretty good authority on the matter, and I think he had a lot of really good stuff to say about Proctor and what he could be, and certainly I think things that should be looked at as exciting for Cavs fans. And thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure you drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And as we get out of here, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I'll be back tomorrow talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.